Funny thing about hope. You don't know how much you need it until someone else carries it for you. Captain Robert Hayes, United States Air Force. Fighter pilot, shot down over North Vietnam on March 14, 1968. Spent 5 years as a prisoner of war in Hanoi. 5 years in a cell, barely big enough for one man, shared with another. His name was Thomas Garrett, Navy pilot, lieutenant, shot down 6 months before me. When they threw me in that cell, broken and bleeding and sure I was going to die, Tom was already there, saved my life. Not just once. Every single day for 3 years. I'm 53 years old now, been home for 8 years. Got a wife, a daughter, a job teaching at the Air Force Academy. Normal life, good life. Everything I dreamed about in that cell. But I can't stop thinking about Tom. Can't stop wondering if I did enough. If I gave him what he gave me. Can't stop feeling guilty that I made it and he didn't. I was 29 when they shot me down, flying an F-4 Phantom on a bombing mission over Hanoi. SAM, surface-to-air missile, took out my engine. We punched out. My weapons officer and I parachuted into hell. Captured within an hour, separated immediately, never saw him again. Hope he made it, never found out. They took me to Hoa Lo prison. The Hanoi Hilton, we called it later. Ironic name for a place that was nothing but suffering. Interrogation first, questions about missions, targets, aircraft. I gave them name, rank, serial number, date of birth, nothing else. Code of conduct. That's what we were trained to do. They didn't like that. Didn't like it at all. The torture started that night. I won't describe it, can't describe it. Some things you can't put into words without reliving them completely. When they were done, when they'd broken enough bones and torn enough flesh, they dragged me to a cell, threw me inside, slammed the door. And there was Tom, sitting in the corner, thin, scarred, but alive, still alive after 6 months in this place. He looked at me, at the blood, at the broken mess they'd made of me. "Welcome to the Hilton," he said. "Let's get you fixed up." The cell was maybe 7 feet by 7 feet. Concrete walls, concrete floor, 1 bucket for waste, 1 bucket for water, 2 thin mats, nothing else. Tom helped me to one of the mats, started checking my injuries, gentle, careful, like he'd done this before. "Ribs are broken," he said, "couple of them. Your shoulder's dislocated, face is a mess, but that'll heal. Can you breathe okay?" I tried. Pain shot through my chest. "Yeah, I think so." "Good, that's good. Means your lungs are okay." He had no medical training, no supplies, no tools, just his hands and whatever he'd learned from months of watching men hurt. He popped my shoulder back into socket. I screamed, couldn't help it. The pain was worse than the torture. "Sorry," he said. "Had to be done. It'll feel better in a few days." He was right. It did feel better. Still hurt like hell, but better. "I'm Tom Garrett," he said. "Navy, A6 pilot, been here since September. Bob Hayes, Air Force, F4. Good to meet you, Bob. Wish it was somewhere else." "Yeah, me too. That first night was the worst. Pain everywhere. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't get comfortable. Just lay there in the dark, listening to sounds from other cells. Screaming, crying, guards walking, keys rattling. Tom stayed awake with me, talked to me, kept me from going crazy. "You got family?" he asked. "Wife. Sarah, 2 years married, no kids yet. She's waiting for you. Remember that. When it gets bad, and it will get bad, remember she's waiting." "You got family?" "Parents. Sister. Girlfriend back home. Susan. We were supposed to get married when I got back from this deployment." Supposed to. Past tense, like he already knew it wouldn't happen. The days blurred together. No clocks, no calendars, No way to mark time except by the meals, if you could call them that. Rice, maybe some vegetables, thin soup, barely enough to survive. We got sick constantly. Dysentery, infections, fevers. The guards didn't care, didn't provide medical treatment. You either survived or you didn't. Tom kept me alive through the first month. When the fever hit, when I was too weak to eat, he'd force water down my throat, force rice into my mouth, make me swallow even when I wanted to give up. "You're not dying on my watch," he said. "I didn't keep this cell alive for 6 months just to have you quit on me." So, I didn't quit, couldn't quit, because Tom wouldn't let me. We developed a routine: wake up, exercise, mental games to keep sharp, tell stories, remember home, pray, sleep, every day the same. Every day survival. Every day wondering if we'd make it to the next. The torture came in waves. Sometimes they'd leave us alone for weeks. Sometimes they'd come every day. They'd take one of us, interrogate, beat, break, bring us back, then take the other. Never both at once. Always left one behind, to wonder, to listen, to imagine what was happening. The waiting was almost worse than the torture itself. Listening to Tom scream in another room, knowing there was nothing I could do, nothing but wait for them to bring him back. They'd drag him in, bloody, broken, drop him on the floor and leave. I'd clean him up, do what he'd done for me, check for serious injuries, try to stop the bleeding with torn pieces of our clothes, hold water to his lips. "I'm okay," he'd say, even when he clearly wasn't. "I'm okay." We never talked about what they did. Didn't need to. We both knew, both lived it. Instead, we talked about home, about the future, about what we'd do when we got out. "First thing I'm doing," Tom said one night, "is eating a real steak, medium rare, with a baked potato, sour cream, the works." "I'm calling Sarah," I said, "soon as I touch American soil, before anything else." "What'll you say?" "I love you. I'm coming home. Wait for me." "She's already waiting. Been waiting since the day you went down." "How do you know?" "Because that's what they do. The ones who love us. They wait. They hope. They keep believing we're alive." Tom's Susan. I wondered if she was still waiting, if she'd moved on, found someone else, given up hope. I never asked. Didn't want to know the answer. Didn't want to see the hope die in Tom's eyes. Winter of 1969 was the worst. We'd been together almost a year by then. The cold was brutal. We had no heat, no warm clothes, just thin prison pajamas and each other. We'd huddled together for warmth, 2 grown men pressed against each other in the dark. No shame in it, no choice, survival. Tom got sick that winter. Real sick. Pneumonia probably. Fever so high he was delirious. Talking to people who weren't there, calling for Susan, for his mother. I thought I was going to lose him. Thought he'd die in my arms and I'd have to share a cell with his corpse until the guards bothered to remove it. But he fought like hell. And somehow, miracle or stubbornness or just refusal to quit, he survived. "Thanks," he said when the fever broke, "for not letting me go." "You didn't let me go." "I couldn't let you go." That's when I realized we weren't just cellmates. We were something more. Brothers, closer than brothers. 2 men who'd seen each other at their absolute worst and loved each other anyway. We knew things about each other no one else would ever know, had seen each other broken and bleeding and crying, had held each other while we screamed, had kept each other alive when death would have been easier. That kind of bond. You can't explain it to people who weren't there, can't describe it. It's beyond words, beyond normal friendship or brotherhood. It's survival, pure survival, and love, the deepest kind of love. The kind that has nothing to do with romance and everything to do with refusing to let the other person die. Years passed. 1969 became 1970. 1970 became 1971. Time lost meaning. Just an endless present of suffering and survival. We kept each other sane. Played mental games. 20 questions. Listing state capitals. Reciting movies we'd seen. Singing songs from memory. Tom had a good voice. Better than mine. He'd sing old standards. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. Songs from before the war. Before everything went to hell. I'd listen, close my eyes, pretend I was somewhere else, somewhere with music and light and freedom. The guards hated it, hated when we sang, hated when we talked, wanted us silent, broken, defeated. But we refused, kept singing, kept talking, kept being human in a place designed to destroy humanity. We communicated with other prisoners through the walls. Tap code. Simple system. Each letter assigned a number. Tap it out. Patient. Slow. Tom taught me. He'd learned it from another prisoner early in his captivity. Passed it on to me. Knowledge spreading cell to cell. Resistance. Connection. Proof we weren't alone. We learned names, units, shoot-down dates. Built a mental map of who was here, who was still alive, who'd died. The deaths hurt. Men we'd never met but felt connected to. Brothers in suffering. When the tapping from a cell stopped, when silence replaced communication, we knew. Another one gone, another family getting a telegram, another empty seat at Thanksgiving. We held memorial services, just Tom and me. Quiet prayers for men we'd never seen, honoring their sacrifice, promising to remember them, to tell their stories if we ever got home. If. Always if. Never when. Because we couldn't be sure, couldn't count on it. Some guys did count on it, built their whole existence around getting home. Planned every detail, what they'd say, what they'd do, where they'd go. Those guys broke hardest when hope faded. When years passed and nothing changed, when it became clear this might be forever. Tom was different. Tom lived in the present. Today, he'd say, we survived today. Tomorrow we'll worry about tomorrow. Kept us grounded, kept us from spiraling into despair about a future that might never come. We marked time by small victories, a slightly larger portion of rice, a day without torture, a moment of kindness from a guard, rare but it happened. A successful communication through the wall. Small things, tiny things, but they mattered. They were evidence that we were still human, still capable of hope, still alive in ways that mattered beyond just breathing. I learned more about Tom in those years than I knew about anyone. His childhood in Nebraska, his love of baseball, his fear of dogs after being bitten as a kid, his dreams of having a farm someday, raising kids, growing old, simple dreams, normal dreams, the kind you don't appreciate until they're taken away. And he learned everything about me, my insecurities, my fears, my shame about things I'd done and things I'd failed to do, my doubts about whether Sarah would still love me, whether I deserved her love. She loves you, Tom would say. That doesn't change just because you're here. I wanted to believe him, tried to believe him, but part of me wondered if I was already dead to her, a ghost, a memory of who I used to be. Spring of 1971. We'd been cellmates for 3 years, 3 years of shared suffering, shared survival, shared hope. Then they separated us, no warning. No explanation. Guards came one morning, unlocked the cell, pointed at Tom. You. Come. Where are you taking him? I asked, a rifle butt to my stomach. Shut up. They took Tom. I never saw him again. The cell felt empty, wrong, like half of me was missing. I'd gotten used to his presence, his voice, his breathing at night, the way he'd tap his fingers when he was thinking, all the small things that made him real. Now silence. Just me and the walls and the endless waiting. I tried to reach him through tap code, tried every wall, every surface. Nothing. Either he was too far away or he couldn't respond. Days passed. Weeks. The isolation was worse than the torture. Worse than the hunger. Worse than everything. I'd gotten used to having someone, used to not being alone. Now the loneliness was crushing, suffocating. I started to break, really break, in ways I hadn't broken before, because before I'd had Tom, had someone to be strong for, someone who needed me. Now I had no one, no reason to stay strong, no reason to keep fighting. I stopped eating, stopped exercising, stopped caring, just lay on my mat and waited to die. The guards noticed, started forced feeding me, brutal, violent. But they needed me alive for some reason, so they kept me alive against my will. Weeks became months. I lost track of time, lost track of myself, became a shell, empty, broken. Everything Tom and I had fought against. Then one day, I don't know how long after they'd separated us, I heard something through the wall. Tap code. I pressed my ear against the concrete, focused, listened. TOMDIED. Tom died. The message was clear, simple, devastating. I asked for details. The tapping came back. INFECTION NOMEDICALCARE. He'd gotten sick. They'd let him die. Simple as that. Let him die when treatment could have saved him. I pressed my forehead against the wall, cried. First time I'd cried since the day I was shot down. Tom was gone, my brother, my cellmate, the man who'd kept me alive, who'd given me hope, who'd refused to let me quit. Gone, dead, buried in some unmarked grave in Vietnam. Another casualty, another name on a list. But he was more than that. More than a name or a statistic. He was Tom, the man who sang Sinatra, who talked about farms and baseball and Susan waiting back home. The man who'd shared 3 years in a 7x7 cell, who'd seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. And I hadn't been there when he died, hadn't held his hand, hadn't told him it would be okay, hadn't done for him what he'd done for me. They'd taken him away and let him die alone. In some other cell, with some other prisoner who didn't know him, didn't know about Nebraska or Susan or dreams of farms. He'd died alone, and I hadn't been there. That broke me in ways the torture never could. I came home in March 1973, part of Operation Homecoming. The war was ending, POWs released, reunions, celebrations. They flew us to the Philippines first, medical checks, debriefs, preparation for going home. Sarah was waiting in San Francisco, just like I'd imagined, just like Tom said she would be. She ran to me, held me, cried. I knew you'd come home. I never stopped believing. I held her, felt nothing, tried to be happy, tried to feel relief or joy or anything. But I was numb, empty. Tom was dead and I was alive, and it didn't make sense. They treated me like a hero. Parades, medals, speeches. The president shook my hand, thanked me for my service, for my sacrifice. I wanted to tell him the sacrifice wasn't mine. It was Tom's. Tom who died in a cell without medical care. Tom who never made it home to Susan or Nebraska or his dreams of a farm. But I just nodded, said thank you, played the part. I tried to find Susan, Tom's girlfriend. Wanted to tell her about him, about who he was in that cell, about how he'd kept me alive, about how much he loved her, talked about her every day. Found out she'd married someone else in 1970, moved to California, had a kid. She'd waited 2 years, then moved on. Started a new life. Probably thought Tom was dead. She was right. He was dead. But he'd still been loving her, still been faithful, still been waiting for her even after she'd stopped waiting for him. I never contacted her. What would I say? That the man she'd loved and forgotten had died alone in a Vietnamese prison? That he'd spent his last years talking about a life with her that would never happen? Better to let it be. Let her have her new life. Let Tom rest. I tried to be a husband to Sarah, tried to be normal, got the job at the academy, had our daughter, Jennifer. Went through the motions, but I wasn't there. Not really. Part of me was still in that cell, still waiting for Tom to come back, still hearing the tap code through the wall. TOMDIED. The guilt was constant, survivor's guilt, the counselors called it, common among prisoners of war, among survivors of trauma. But it was more than that. It was the knowledge that Tom had kept me alive, that I'd needed him more than he'd needed me, that I'd taken from him his strength, his hope, his will to survive, and given nothing back. That when they separated us, I'd broken and he'd kept fighting, and he'd died fighting while I'd given up. Sarah tried to understand. You both did what you could. You both survived as long as you could. His death isn't your fault. But it felt like my fault, felt like I should have been stronger, should have found a way to help him, should have been there. They put Tom's name on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Panel 1W, Line 89. Thomas Michael Garrett, Lieutenant, United States Navy. I visit when I can, stand in front of that wall, trace his name with my fingers. I'm sorry, I whisper. Every time. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry you died alone. Other visitors probably think I'm crazy, talking to a wall, crying over a name they don't recognize. But Tom would understand. Tom always understood. My daughter asks me sometimes about the war, about being a POW. She's 16 now, learning about Vietnam in school. I tell her some of it. The sanitized version. The parts that don't hurt too much. I don't tell her about Tom. Can't. Because talking about Tom means admitting I loved him. Means admitting that the man who mattered most to me for 3 years wasn't her mother or my family, but a Navy pilot in a cell in Hanoi. Means admitting that I've spent the last 8 years pretending to be alive while the real me died when Tom died. We never came back from those cells. The POWs, the ones who survived captivity. Our bodies came home, got medical treatment, got parades, got medals. But we're still there, still in those cells, still listening through walls, still waiting for tap codes that never come, still surviving, day by day, hour by hour, just like Tom taught me. But surviving isn't living, and coming home isn't the same as being home. I'm here, in Colorado Springs, teaching future pilots, raising a daughter, going through the motions. But I'm not here. Not really. I'm in a 7x7 cell in Hanoi, sitting with my cellmate, my brother, my friend, waiting for him to come back. Still waiting, always waiting.